So it's been about a month of using the iPhone 16e as my daily, and I have been impressed, but there are things that I like and dislike about this phone, or rather can't sacrifice being without. So let's talk about it. If you don't know what the iPhone 16e is, here is a quick summary. Despite what we think, this is not a replacement for the iPhone SE. This is a part of the 16 family.
Although it gives off the vibe of being an updated to this generation SE, it's quite clear that it is a 16 family member down to the design and the specs inside. It has a body like the 16 with the squared off aluminium edges, and it loses the home button, which is actually gone for good now. So welcome to the world of Face ID, but it does also introduce the customizable action button. Where it's slightly different is that it has one camera lens as opposed to two. It's a 48 megapixel fusion camera, but it isn't the same as what's in the 16. It has the A18 chip, just like the iPhone 16, although it is a 4-core GPU and not a 5-core GPU, and it has something completely new, which is Apple's own C1 modem, which should help with better 5G service and battery performance. Coming in at a starting price of $9.99 AUD or $5.99 USD for my international viewers, it's not quite a budget phone, but it is a budget iPhone.
And I think it does have its place for people. However, I don't think that I'm people. After using it as my daily for the past month, let's get into my likes and dislikes about the iPhone 16e. My first like, the body and the size. I like how light it is, and I miss being able to hold a phone in one hand and be able to reach the screen and type. It's a 6.1 Super Retina XDR display, better known as OLED for my non-Apple lingo audience, and it is a great display and a great size. I dislike the bezels on this phone as well as the notch. I actually miss Dynamic Island. I never thought I would say that, but I also miss having a fuller display and, of course, a better display, because we do have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that is that this is a 60Hz display. It does not have ProMotion. Now take this as you will. This might be a controversial opinion, but when I use phones, and of course I use a lot of phones, it's my job, my eyes can easily glaze over the fact that there is a 60Hz display versus something with an adaptive refresh rate. Some of the time, definitely not all of the time. There are times where I notice it and it is frustrating. But we all have to understand that this is clearly an intentional move. Why would Apple have different tiers of products if they were just going to put every feature in this base model phone? It does not make sense. It doesn't make sense for any business. Of course, there's going to be pro models with pro features. Yes, we can argue that having an adaptive refresh rate on a display is not necessarily a pro feature. It should be an everyday feature. But if you do want something with a better display at this stage, you have to go to a higher model. But I will say viewing content on this phone for me is a breeze. I really enjoy watching YouTube videos, watching my TV shows. I do wish that the speakers were a bit louder though. It does lack in that department for my particular usage. But moving on from the front of the phone, let's talk about the back. And my biggest dislike, no MagSafe. There is no going back when you've had MagSafe. It really is a game changer. Obviously, it allows you to magnetically charge your devices, but you can use magnetic accessories such as tripods or car phone mounts. And when you don't have that, it sucks. So the fact that it doesn't have MagSafe does make me really sad. I genuinely thought Apple would put it into the phone. I feel like MagSafe, they've made that their brand. I don't think they should compromise on that, regardless if this is a budget iPhone. I say that quote unquote because it's not really a budget phone, but an entry-level iPhone. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sad that there's no MagSafe. But while we're on the back of the phone, I need to throw in something that is a like and a dislike hybrid, and it is this little guy. I cannot decide if I like the camera in this phone. I dislike the fact that there is no ultra-wide lens in here though. Turns out I use that lens a lot more than I thought, and that is both for video and photo. So not having that has been a really big challenge for me. Even the telephoto lens, not having that when I'm taking photos of my dog, it's been a challenge. However, the 48 megapixel fusion that is in this phone, it is okay and it still takes a nice photo. You are limited to 2x zoom on the lens unless you want to digitally zoom in. And I really like that there is no camera control. I liked it when it first came out, but then I realized I don't actually use that feature unless I am opening the camera on my phone. I don't swipe the menus with it. I don't use it to capture anything. It's literally just to double click and open my camera app. I changed it to the double click because I was accidentally opening the camera every time I grabbed my phone. Camera control feels like the gimmick that just didn't work out, and I really hope that Apple can improve it in the future. I just don't use it much. I don't enjoy it anymore. I did when it first came out because it was that new feature, but realistically, I don't really use it. Video on this phone is limited to 4K 60, but let's be real, not many people would be filming in 4K 120 unless they are doing something more cinematic. This phone is not the cinematic phone. You obviously lose cinematic mode. You do get audio mix though, which is quite handy. But I would argue that if you are using your phone for content creation, you're not going to be buying an iPhone 16e. That also includes things like video stabilization. It does not feel the same as what my Pro Max does. So yeah, if you are looking for a phone purely for content creation and everyday use, of course, the iPhone 16e is probably not going to be your first choice. The battery life on the phone is good, although I am so used to a 16 Pro Max having up to 33 hours of video playback that I do notice a difference, and I find that I am charging my phone a little bit more when I am using this. I do feel that the iPhone 16e does feel less premium compared to the rest of its family, and that's purely down to the fact it is aluminium edges and this sort of glass back. There's no titanium frame. Titanium, of course, is heavier, so the fact that this is aluminium does contribute to the weight. And I did say I really liked how lightweight this phone is, and I really do. However, the titanium, when you've had it and you've used it, you've held it, this sort of feels like it cheapens the phone, which I don't like to use that word because it is not a cheap phone. $999, it is not a cheap phone. However, titanium does feel more luxurious. I'm definitely blinded by the Apple lights. I can completely understand that, and realistically, that is not an important feature. Maybe for durability, yes, but from an aesthetic point of view, that is not important. However, it is nice to have a device that does feel premium and does feel luxurious when you are spending this kind of money on them. But who do I think that the iPhone 16 is for? If you are someone who is upgrading from an iPhone 11, maybe even an iPhone 12, I think this could be a really good upgrade. That is, of course, if you're looking at upgrading to something that is not over the $1,000 price point. You still get Apple Intelligence features, you still have a really good processor that does play the part in making it a powerful phone. And of course, it feels like the latest and greatest iPhone series because yes, it is a part of the 16 family. And it basically is an iPhone 16 minus a couple features. I also think if you are upgrading from an iPhone SE, this is probably going to be your next best choice. But because you are losing things like the home button and having that really thin design that the SE had, this could be more of a considerable upgrade for you, and you might want to go to the next model up, which is the base model 16. And I still think that is a really good choice too. But if you are wanting to save around that $300 mark, you can't go wrong with the iPhone 16e. I personally would buy this phone for my parents, or if I did have a kid or a teenager looking at getting their first phone, this would be a really good option for them. But the iPhone 16e is definitely not for me, and that's okay. I'm not the target audience. It's just nice to see Apple do something slightly different with their lineup. However, I think the icing on the cake would be to reduce the price to around the $800 Australian dollar mark. I think that would be more appealing to people. But that has been my look at the iPhone 16e, so be sure to subscribe because I look forward to talking more tech with you in the next video.